good evening. Welcome from here in my home in Dubai, and good evening to you all wherever you're listening in on this, and welcome to the University of Northampton Doctorate of Business Administration presentation. So my name is Professor Tim Campbell, and I'm going to be taking you through this presentation. So what I'd like to do is spend no more than 20 minutes where I'm just going to give you a presentation of the main points of the program, how it's run and what we're doing about workshops and all that type of thing. And then as soon as that's done, you can ask me as many questions as you want. Okay, so let's get cracking with the presentation first. And I thought before I talk about the DBA program, just a few slides about Northampton and the university. Some of you may not even be aware of where Northampton is. So I've given you a big map of the UK here. And then that arrow is pointing to Northampton. Northampton is an old historical town. It's about 100 miles north of London. It takes about an hour in the train to get there. And the town of Northampton is, of course, where you will find the University of Northampton. And this photo at the start here as well. That's just this picture at the start. That's just a little bit of the new campus as well. The campus for the university, by the way, it used to be just on the outside of the town, just on the outskirts. But then in 2018, a couple of years ago now, a brand new campus was built that's now right in the middle of Northampton. And it's a fantastic new campus. It was spent $500 million was spent on it, and it really is sort of the latest technology, and it's on a very, very, very nice site. And I've just given you a picture of this building here, which is one of the many buildings on the campus called the Senate Building, because on one of the floors there, where I've just taken a picture of the desks, that's the doctoral research students' workspace. So if ever you go to the campus at the University of Northampton, there's always a space for you there as doctoral students to work, and you can work there for as long as you want. Okay. So let's just talk a little bit more about the University of Northampton. It's of course, you'll go on the website and you'll see all the information you need about it. So I've just picked a couple of things out. First is that education in Northampton dates back an awfully long time, back to the 13th century. But the modern University of Northampton's origins begin about 100 years ago to where it is today, with about 14,000 students and 1,500 staff. And it has the Teaching Excellence Framework Gold Award. When we talk about rankings, there's only two that are done by the UK government or by bodies on behalf of the UK government. That's the Teaching Excellence Framework, which is ranked bronze, silver and gold, and the other is for research, the Research Excellence Framework, which is the same. And the University of Northampton with the TEF is rated gold, which is the highest level you can be, and is good recognition of the excellent teaching that the university has and that you're getting into. But as I say, I'm sure you'll all do all your own research on the university and find out as much as you can about it. Because what I really want to talk to you about, and what you're here to hear me talk about, and to ask questions, of course, at the end, is the DBA, the Doctorate of Business Administration. So let me start from the start. The question I get most often is, well, what is a doctorate? Well, a doctorate is often called a terminal degree, meaning it's the final degree. It's the highest level of degree. And of course, it normally goes, you do a bachelor's, you'll do a master's, then you'll move on to the doctorate, which is the highest level of taught study. There are two types of doctorates. One of them are called professional doctorates. And these are for people who are primarily engaged in a profession. So of course, a medical doctor will do an MD, Doctor of Medicine. An engineer could do a Doctorate of Engineering. A pharmacist could do a Doctorate of Pharmacy. An education professional could do a Doctorate in Education. And of course, in Business and Management, the professional doctorate is the DBA, Doctorate of Business Administration. So all of those doctorates are for people who are primarily engaged in a profession. We also have research doctorates, and the most common one that you'll be aware of, I'm sure, is a PhD, a doctorate of philosophy. And these are what we call research doctorates, because the people that you can do a PhD in anything or research doctorate in anything, but people who do research doctorates are generally involved in academic careers rather than a particular profession. So they'll usually be at universities or research institutes or that type of thing. So two types of doctorates, they're academically equivalent, they just have different purposes and audiences. And the DBA, one of the main differences from a PhD in management, it's more applied, it's more practical. It must have a practical contribution to business or management. A PhD doesn't necessarily have to have that. It could be purely theoretical. So they're both research-based degrees. Whichever you do, you actually do a research project. And of course, you get to have that title of doctor in front of your name, whichever you do. They're both academically equivalent. They're at the same level, as I mentioned. Just one final word on this, which I think is quite a nice quote I found, and it's really quite wordy, but it's worth me just reading it because it makes a nice, it just goes further into this distinction between DBAs and PhDs. It's from all business schools, by the way, and I'm just going to read it for you. So if we start up the top there, we've got all, so PhD programs in business focus intensively on preparing candidates to conduct highly specialized scholarly research. They focus on the development of new theory in management, economics, and related fields. Most PhD in business administration graduates lead to careers as university researchers and professors, or as senior researchers in business or government. By contrast, the DBA, so Doctorate of Business Administration, DBA programs focus on the application of theory, what I talked about, the practical aspects of it, rather than on the development of new theory. So the DBA, so by the DBA, by virtue of its focus on the application of theory, has more practical application in managerial settings than the PhD. Okay, so that's the difference between the two. People who primarily want to remain in business and management, reach into the board levels or the very senior levels of business and management, will tend to do the DBA. Those who more so want to have academic careers will more so do the PhD. But that's not cut and dry. I've worked in universities that have plenty of people who had DBAs, and I also know plenty of people in industry who have PhDs. So it's not a cut and dry rule, it just gives you the idea of what the difference of focus between those two are. Right here, let's get on to the program then. So what do you actually study doing a DBA? What sort of topics do people do? You can do anything in business and management. And these are all topics that our current students are doing, and I've just randomly selected them. So we've got a critical examination of a performance management system, another looking at leadership styles, an assessment of corporate governance in the public sector, assessing the value chain and manufacturing business, reasons for investing in high-tech startups, resolving project conflicts, agile project management. And one of my students who looked at knowledge transfer in a management training session, So as you can see for that, it could be anything business and management, accounting, finance, HRM, strategy, marketing, it can be entrepreneurship, it could be small businesses, it can be large businesses, it can be public, it can be private, it could be charities, anything that fits within this business and management realm. Taking a look at the program itself then, our next intake. So the next intake start date has been timetabled, and I'm sure your consultant at Stafford has already sent you the exact timetable, which will tell you the exact dates. But it starts, the first workshop, on the 26th to the 29th of May of this year, of course. It's our 11th intake, bearing in mind there's 2 intakes a year, so we've been going, my math should be better than that, but that's a bit over 5 years, isn't it? Remember, that's just for our Middle East and Africa intake, the one that we teach here in the United Arab Emirates, or at least we did used to teach it face-to-face. As I'm sure you're all aware, how we do the workshops now, we do it virtually. So the workshops are still taught over the same periods, over the same days. The tutor, rather than flying in from Northampton, will now come to you as I am now, using the virtual classroom technology that the university has. So the only difference is you won't be coming to the United Arab Emirates for the workshops. You'll be sitting at home or work, or wherever it might be, and the tutor will be coming to you virtually, as I say, just like I am now. And how it's taught is that you have these 6 workshops. Now, these are spread over 2 years. Okay, so you'll have a workshop, and then there's a break of about 10 weeks or however long it might be, where you'll be working on the assignments and working on various things on the university's virtual learning environment, and then you'll do your next workshop. So these first 2 years are what we call facilitated modules. They're where you're going to learn everything about how to research. And you can see from these modules, you're going to learn about how to analyze quantitative data, qualitative data, write proper proposals, and all of that type of thing that you need to know. Once you successfully complete that, the next 2 years is where you write your thesis. Okay, and that's when you have a Doctor of Studies and 2 other supervisors. So you have a team of 3 who will be your personal supervisors taking you through that project. So the first 2 years is to prepare you, give you all the tools you need for the second 2 years where you actually conduct your research. Okay, so that's the program assessment. So in a doctoral level, study, and on the DBA, with all of these modules, there's different types of assessments. They can be essays, seminar presentations, debates, portfolio, a research report. You'll even do a practice viva in one of them. So all of these, there will be different methods of assessment, but there's some form of an assignment for all of them that will be relevant, obviously, to the module that you're doing. Your thesis, that last 2 years, I remember I mentioned, that is your big piece of work, and that's a 40,000 word thesis, and that's assessed by a viva voce examination. That means an oral examination. That's the only time you actually need to go to the University of Northampton. You'll go there, and then you'll be assessed with an external examiner and an internal examiner. Somebody from the university, somebody from another UK university. And once you pass that, it's done. You're celebrating, it's finished. Then you're a doctor. There's lots and lots of support on the program. There's the international DBA program leader who looks after this program from the university campus itself. Every module has its own dedicated expert, tutor, senior academic. They're the types of people who work on the doctoral programs. I mentioned at the thesis stage, you have a director of study, 2 supervisors. There's administration in Northampton. At Stafford can help you with administration if you can't find the right people. It has a very, very extensive virtual learning environment, which is called NILE, the Northampton Integrated Learning Environment. On there, every module has its own site where you'll have everything you need to complete the module. That's where your virtual classroom will be. It's where module materials are. It's where readings are. It's where you access the library, etc., etc., all contained within this VLE. And the library, by the way, has millions and millions of resources that you can use. And it's, I must put on my list here as well, because I forget. There's also the graduate school, which looks after graduates, such as the doctoral students. And that has lots and lots of workshops that you can sign up for. Many of them are virtual, of course. So there's all sorts of extra things you can do through the graduate school as well. Lots and lots of resources that they have, workshops that they run, conferences, and all different manner of things as well. So lots and lots of support. Entry requirements then. So normally you would hold a master's degree in a business related subject that should be completed within the last 10 years. If it's been longer than 10 years, as long as you've been showing that you've been doing training courses at work or doing something to keep your knowledge up to date, then that should be okay. Then you normally have a minimum of 5 years of work experience, at least some of which should be at a senior level. and to be employed in a position or in a role capable of supporting the achievement of the program learning outcomes. What that means is everybody who's on the DBA is working, essentially, whatever role that might be. Because when you do the facilitated modules, a lot of it will be looking at different things in your own organization or your own practice and these types of things. You need to be in a role that supports that. Application requirements. Fairly standard, the top bits, a CV, a personal statement, which will talk about why you want to do a doctorate, how it's going to help you personally in your career, why you want to be doing a DBA, these types of things. You'll have 2 references, your certificates, transcripts, which are all fairly standard. And then evidence of English language ability if it's required. And they'll let you know at the application stage if you need it. For example, if your master's was done in English, you wouldn't. So, at this stage, they'll let you know if you need to do anything there. But the bottom 2 are important because you'll submit this plus a proposal. And the proposal will just be 1,000 words. And there's a template for it, the Northampton Research Area Form, where you're just going to give the admissions team an idea of what you want to study. And I'll talk more about why we do proposals and what should be in them in a moment. But based on that proposal, the admissions team will look at it, and if it looks okay, you'll move on to the interview stage, where you'll be interviewed by the program leader at the University of Northampton and a subject expert. So if your proposal's in finance, it'll be somebody from finance. If it's in strategy, somebody from finance, etc. Okay? And the interview takes about 30 minutes, and they're going to ask you all about the different application documents, but particularly the proposal. So now it's important to note that the admission onto the program, the rate of admission is about 50% of people who apply will be successfully get onto the program. And I think that those that don't get on are often the people who just haven't spent enough time really thinking about the proposal, and then haven't spent enough time thinking about the interview and how they're going to answer the questions that are going to come, which are going to be mostly about that proposal. So what I'm saying is, do spend some time on these things. Don't think it's something you can do in an afternoon. You really need to spend some time thinking about what you might want to do and how you're going to go about it. It's not going to be perfect. Not at this stage, and it's not expected to be. But, and this leads on to my next slide, the proposal is used because at least at this level, at the admission stage, we should be able to see, is the applicant capable of studying at doctoral level? Because it is a big step up from master's. As I said, it's the highest level of qualification. There are expectations. So that proposal should look at least like the person is capable of studying at that level. Then they're going to look at, does the proposed research fit with the nature of the DBA? So it must be in business and management, and it must have a practical outcome to it. And then the third one is, does the university have an appropriate supervisor? Now, all major areas can be supervised, but if you come up with something that's very, very niche, like a quality system or something, or perhaps you want to do it on a context that not many people know about or something, then it might be difficult to find a supervisor. So just at this stage, make sure it's broad enough that it fits within one of those business and management topics and is likely to be people with knowledge in that area. Just my last word on the proposal. I know I don't want to go on too much about these, but again, I just want to emphasize that people are putting an effort in actually doing these proposals. So what is the Northampton team going to look at? Can it make a practical contribution to business and management? Can the applicant reference correctly using Harvard? Can the applicant write a brief literature review and cite at least just a few authors in the field that they want to research? Do they have just a basic understanding of research methods? Now, I put at the bottom that all business and management master's graduates should already have these skills. Okay, enough about the proposal. Fees, please have a look on the Stafford Global website for the current fees, because they can vary between intake, to make sure you have got completely up-to-date information on the next intake fees for this. When you see it, I guarantee they are very reasonable from a doctorate program taught in this way. Last couple of things, then I promise I'll get to those questions. So why should you do a DBA at Northampton? It's an investment in your future, both in your academic and professional fields. It's the highest qualification in business and management. You'll contribute to business and management practice. It would be expected that your thesis would be published. You have international and local supervision and support, and then local workshops and leading international faculty. As I mentioned, you're being taught virtually until we can all get back to a time when we can get back to those face-to-face sessions. Final word from me, completion of the Northampton DBA will set you apart as an expert, able to lead and manage at the highest levels. You will have made a unique contribution to your field and developed outstanding analytical, critical, and creative and reflective skills so needed in today's business world. You know, a DBA really will set you out as an expert in your field and open a lot of doors for you, because you will be seen as an expert in terms of and be at a board level, a consultant, running your own business, senior management, whatever it might be. So it is an investment. Rightio, how did I do for time? 22 minutes, that's not bad. Pretty close to my 20 minutes I was aiming for. Now let's get on to those questions. So please do, the easiest way to do this, because I can see I have quite a large bunch of attendees, which is fabulous. I'm just going to have a quick look where everyone's. I can see from the names, I have people from around the Middle East and further abroad. I can see some who've come in from Africa. Fabulous, a nice mix. As I say, but with a big group of you, the easiest way to do it is if you use that question box. And then I'm just going to go through them one by one. Right. Okay, here, let me start with the first question from Peter then, who is asking about the workshops being, he's saying the workshops are currently virtual, which, as you know, I mentioned. But then he's saying, what is covered and how important are these? The workshops are crucial to your studies. They really are. You, oh, and something I forgot to mention about the virtual workshops as well. They are recorded. So if for some reason you can't make a particular session on a particular day, it's recorded and you can watch the lecture over again. But that said, you do need to do your very best to be at those workshops, because they cover such important material. It's where you'll mix with not only your professor, but where you'll mix with your other team, people from your team as well. They're an integral part of the program. So they're very, very important. Do make sure you get to these workshops. But as I said, you know, things do happen, and if there's some reason you can't make a session, they are recorded and you can catch up on them. Elliot's asking, can the program be completed in less than 4 to 6 years? A short answer to that is no. The first 2 years is already timetabled, so you need to follow along with your timetable and handing it in. The thesis stage again is 2 years, and we really want people to finish within those 2 years. So we'll do everything you can. It would be possible to finish a bit shorter if you're very good, but trust me, when you're on the program, you're much better to use the full 2 years. What's important is passing, not doing it a few months earlier. So my short answer to that, stick to that 4 years and get it done within 4 years. We do have years 5 and 6 if students spill over and they need a bit extra time, and that's fine. But we always aim, as a supervision team and as a team at the university, get the students through in the allocated 4 years. Next question. I stopped my DBA studies at another university. Can I get exemptions for the modules I completed? Only very exceptionally, Peter. If these modules happen to be very close to what is studied on the Northampton program. Generally, exemptions aren't allowed on the Northampton DBA. You need to start from the beginning. And the reason is because the modules build on each other. So if you start missing some of the modules, it can become a little confusing. And DBA programs at different universities can be quite different as well. So you might have studied one somewhere, but it might be quite different in another one. So the short answer to this is no. You best start there from the start, make the way through with your intake. Question about supervisors. Will I be able to meet my supervisor here in the UAE? So Elliot's obviously from the UAE. That's very good. taking into account current restrictions. No, you won't. It will be virtual. But I'm supervising students at the moment, and I've got students. Oh, where are my students? I've got one in Kuwait. I've got one in Oman. I've got one here in UAE, who incredibly lives about 2 miles from me, just down the road. But even with him, we just meet virtually. So there's no problem. At the moment, the meetings are virtually, but they work very well. It's the best way to do it. Peter, will my degree state online distance learning? No, it won't, because it's not an online course. Remember what I said, we have face-to-face workshops, so it's a part-time course. Even though they're virtual, because there's no other choice at the moment, it won't say online. It's a part-time course. Oh, this is a good question from Elliot. When will the workshops resume again in the UAE? It's just impossible to know. It's going to happen. It depends on the world around us. You know, they will soon, but it's impossible to say. But as I say, the virtual workshops have been running for a year now, replacing the face-to-face, and they've gone very, very well, and the students like them. So that will continue on until until things get better. Oh, that's a good question, Peter. Let me read it out. What will be the format of my DBA certificate? He's saying, is it printed under Stafford Global or the University of Northampton, or both? Now, this is an important question. I should have mentioned this at the start. You know, what is the role of Stafford Global? The role of Stafford Global is about marketing the program, student recruitment. All of you would have met someone at Stafford Global. You'll be here tonight because of one of the very good consultants, by Mario or Helen or whoever else you've been talking to there, and I'm sure they've been extremely very, very good and informative. But their role, so our role, Stafford Global's role, to market, recruit students, and then it's also to help students with administration through their program. But when you enroll on the DBA, you are 100% entirely a student of the University of Northampton. That's who will award you a degree. That's what your degree certificate will say. That's what your transcript will say. Everything academic is the University of Northampton. So do make that distinction between the two bodies. What would happen if there's no supervisor for my topic? Would I get rejected? Well, the short answer is yes, but as I mentioned before, it happens very rarely. It's only if you came up with a topic that was something very, very specific, that it was difficult to find somebody with expertise in that particular topic. But the vast majority of times it doesn't happen, because students generally will come up with something that fits in with finance or accounting or project management or social responsibility or business ethics or something. It's normally not a problem. It's just if somebody comes up with something very, very specific that it's hard to find expertise for. Elliot, what's my next question? If I fail the interview stage, what could happen with my application? Can you apply again? After the interview, you'll be given the decision by the University of Northampton, and if you didn't pass the interview, they would give you reasons why, and then they'll perhaps say, we recommend that you apply again. They'll give you advice, and maybe it's the proposal, for example. They'll say, work again on your proposal and on these bits, and then apply again for the next intake. So that letter that you get will give you an indication whether it's fine to apply for the next intake and what you need to do for it. So that will be a decision for the admissions team at the university. Do I need to purchase any additional study materials such as textbooks? Nope, absolutely not. Everything's included. The only thing that was extra is when we had the face-to-face workshops here in the UAE. So those people who weren't from the UAE, of course, had to pay their travel and accommodation to get here. But everything involved with the program is included. Can we have an insight of the program from a student who finished or is undergoing the program in the UAE? Yeah, one of our current students. Please, if you want to do that, ask one of the consultant you're with at Stafford, because of course we can't just give out student details. But if you ask the consultant you're talking to at Stafford, and then ask them If they've got a student that they can recommend, then the consultant can ask the student and make sure they have their permission for you to get in touch. So we can facilitate that. Just chat with your consultant at Stafford. Last question from Ali, who gives me your age. I'm not gonna mention your age, Ali. Some concern regarding the flexibility and difficulty of the program. Aha, awesome, good questions. How many hours do you need to spare per day? Let me take that question first. That's really difficult to say because some students will pick things up, I suppose, just faster than others. But it may only be particular modules. Some students may pick up the quantitative methods module quite quickly, brush through it. One of the students on the course may have to spend a lot more time on that module and they're not as confident. But then it might get to the qualitative methods module and the other student does it much faster and the quantitative student does it much slower. So it can depend on the student, it can depend on which module they're doing. They find some modules easier than others, all different manner of things. But from talking to students, if I'm going to give you a rule of thumb, if you can spend 10 hours a week, not a day, Ali, not a day, trust me. If you can spare 8 to 10 hours a week, that tends to be the sorts of time that students tell me they spend. But please, as I say, bear in mind, some people might not need to spend that much time. Others might need to spend longer, just depends. But that's just a rule of thumb, I suppose, just from me. Regarding the format of the DBA transcript, is the word part-time on it? From memory, I think it is, but I can't entirely remember. And then you put, can we have a copy? Yes, we do have sample copies of the degree and the transcript. Again, please ask your consultant at Stafford and they will send it to you. I think it does have part-time on it, but please ask your consultant to send you a sample transcript so you can make absolutely sure about that. One more, last question. How does the University of Northampton DBA boost my career? I'm a mid-level management in the financial services industry. Well, as I mentioned at the end of the presentation, the DBA, for doing a doctorate, sets you out as an expert in your field, unequivocally as an expert. There are very few people who undergo a doctoral journey. And our students, again, from knowing what they do, and they come from all different industries and walks of life, you know, what they do with their careers, some of them, it's obviously a boost to be, you say you're a mid-level management, so it could be, it's your, you know, it's your way into the high levels of management, you know, into the high levels, into the corporate level, into the board level, etc. But I know other students will use it to consult, some of them to do a little bit of teaching, others to start their own businesses. There's all, you know, it opens a lot of different doors for you. So how does it boost your career? And a great variety of ways, depending on what your ambitions are. Perfect. I have now, I think, answered all the questions. So thanks for all those questions, everybody. A good mix there. If there is something I haven't covered and you want me to, if there's a question I didn't get to, you've got something you want to ask me, you can do it anytime. Just, there's my details there. Also, remember, if you have ideas for your research proposal, but you're not very sure if they're a very good one or not, you're more than welcome just to email it to me and I'll give you my comments. Obviously, I very much recommend that as something that you do before you submit the proposal. In fact, once I get the drafts, I look at all of them anyway, so before they're submitted. So if you need a bit of comment on the idea that you've got, or you've put a bit of the proposal together and you want to see what it looks like, you're welcome just to email it to me directly and I'll let you know. Let you know what I think about it. Okay, thanks very much for listening, everyone. Very much hope I'm going to see you at the next intake 11 in May. Thanks, guys. Bye for now.